Okay, let's talk about the rhinoceros. When you look at one, you're looking at a living, breathing connection to a prehistoric world. It's just magnificent. But its story, especially in modern times, well, it's a real roller coaster, full of these incredible highs and just devastating lows. So let's get right into it.
I mean, just look at this creature. Its ancestors were roaming the Earth as far back as 50 million years ago. It's honestly a miracle that they've survived long enough for us to even see them today. For millions and millions of years, they were a huge success story. But then, their long history took a really sharp, dangerous turn when they finally met their one and only real predator.
And this quote from 1947, wow, it just paints such a haunting picture, doesn't it? The old bones and skulls of rhinos were often seen, showing how numerous this animal must once have been. Imagine that. A landscape once filled with these giants was, by the 20th century, basically a graveyard. This really sets the stage for the first great tragedy in the modern rhino story.
So yeah, that's where our story really kicks off, with a near total collapse. You have to remember, for millions of years, rhinos were thriving. But that all changed, and it changed fast, with the arrival of, well, us, technologically advanced humans.
You know, for ages, the rhino was just this incredibly successful model of a large herbivore. But the very thing that made them successful, their routine, their habits, it kind of became their Achilles heel. See, they tend to stick to a pretty small area, right? They go back to the same watering holes, the same shady trees, day in and day out. And that predictability sadly made them incredibly easy targets for hunters.
And the devastation. It was just staggering. By 1885, relentless hunting had pushed the southern white rhino right to the absolute edge of extinction. The entire global population was down to this, fewer than 50. Not 50,000, just 50, left on the entire planet. All of them huddled together in one small area, what's now the Hluhluwe in Mfolozi Park in South Africa. It's just unbelievable.
But then, just when it seemed like all hope was lost, the story takes this incredible turn. I mean, from the very brink of being wiped off the face of the earth came one of the greatest, most stunning conservation success stories the world has ever seen. So what happened? Well, this tiny group of survivors, this handful of rhinos, was given some serious protection. And you know what? They responded. They didn't just survive, they thrived. Their numbers started increasing so spectacularly that by 1960, the park was actually struggling to support them all. So they had this new kind of radical idea. What if we moved them back into the places where they used to live?
And this was the birth of something called Operation Rhino. And it was totally groundbreaking stuff. It wasn't random. They had a solid plan. First, they'd identify the extra rhinos in the park. But then came the real challenge. How in the world do you safely capture and move a 2-ton animal? They had to invent whole new techniques. So in October 1961, they started moving the first rhinos to Kruger National Park, creating the seed of a brand new protected herd.
And these pictures, they just show you how incredibly ambitious this whole thing was. I mean, look at that. They were using helicopters and massive trucks to move these sedated giants. It's wild. And over the next few decades, they ended up moving more than 4,000 rhinos this way, reestablishing populations all across the continent. Just an incredible feat.
And the result? It was absolutely staggering. Just look at this chart. And this is for Kruger National Park alone. The bar on the left, that's our fewer than 50 number back in 1885. And the one on the right, by 2007, more than 8,600. What an unbelievable comeback story. But the fight was far, far from over.
Because, you see, a new kind of threat was creeping in. This wasn't about simple hunting anymore. This was about something much bigger. Global economics, organized crime, and a myth that just refused to die.
Okay, to really get a grip on this new crisis, you have to understand this slide. It's everything. On the left, you've got the simple scientific reality. A rhino's horn is made of keratin. That's it. It's the exact same stuff as your own fingernails and hair. No proven medicinal value. Period. And on the right, you have the myth, this powerful, totally baseless belief that it's some kind of miracle cure for everything from a fever to cancer.
And that myth? Oh, it has a price tag. A huge one. $60,000. That's the black market price per kilogram in parts of Asia. To put that in perspective, it's worth more than its weight in gold, more than cocaine.
When there's that much money on the table, you can bet the big criminal syndicates are going to get involved.
So forget everything you thought you knew about poaching. This is not the opportunistic hunting from a century ago. This is a full-blown, high-tech war, and it's being waged against these incredibly well-funded, highly organized, and absolutely ruthless criminal networks.
The scale of this new assault it's just breathtaking. Since 2008, the poaching of African rhinos has exploded by a staggering 2,000%. Can you even process that number? All those incredible gains made over decades of hard work, suddenly they were all at risk of being wiped out.
And yeah, this is a high-tech war. The modern poacher's toolkit, it's like something out of a spy movie. We're talking helicopters, night vision scopes, silenced weapons, even crossbows. They use veterinary tranquilizing drugs to take the rhinos down quietly and then coordinate the whole pickup with cell phones. This is a professional operation. And this quote from Ken Maggs, the head of Sam Park's anti-poaching unit, just cuts right to the bone. He says, "For people moving contraband, rhino horn is just another commodity. For these international criminal syndicates, there's nothing sacred about the rhino. Its horn is just another product to be moved for a profit, no different than drugs or weapons."
So this incredibly high-stakes war has sparked a really fierce debate, right inside the conservation community itself. The old ways of doing things just aren't keeping up, and everyone is asking the same desperate question. So what is the solution? What do we do now?
And this really is the million-dollar question. Or maybe the $60,000 per kilo question. Here's the crazy part. A rhino's horn, if you trim it carefully, it grows back, just like our fingernails. So how on earth do you stop a crisis that's fueled by a commodity worth a fortune that literally replenishes itself? As you can imagine, the conservation community is completely split on the answer.
So the debate really boils down to two main camps, and they are polar opposites. On one side, you have the people who say, enforce the ban, period. They argue that any legal trade just fuels the demand, makes it easier for criminals to launder illegal horns, and sends a confusing message. For them, a total ban and tough enforcement is the only answer. But then, on the other side, you have folks who say the ban is the problem. It's what drove the price through the roof. Their idea? Legalize and regulate the trade. Sell horns from government stockpiles or from farmed rhinos to flood the market, crash the price, and bankrupt the criminal syndicates.
But look, neither path is easy, right? There are so many thorny questions. People who are against legalization worry about the ethics of farming rhinos like livestock. They worry about corruption getting into any legal system. And here's the big one. Could you ever have enough legal horn to satisfy this massive demand, or would you just make the problem even bigger? It is a deeply, deeply complex problem, and there are absolutely no easy answers here.
So after all of this, we're left with one big question. A century ago, humanity, we brought this ancient survivor back from the absolute brink of extinction. Today, it's facing a brand new enemy, one that's smarter, richer, and more high-tech. The fight for the rhino's future is a test, really. It's a test of our will, our ingenuity, a test of whether we can solve one of the most complex conservation puzzles on the entire planet. We did it once. The question is, can we do it again?